Thanks, Amin, for filling us in on all that's been happening in this space. So the big question, ladies and gentlemen, will there be a deal over the next 48 hours, an interim trade deal or a mini deal between the United States and India or not? Let's take that question across and many others to the panel of guests who are joining us now. Joining us is Jayant Dasgupta, former ambassador and representative of India to the WTO. Also joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Gurcharan Das. He is the author and he's an author and commentator, also the former CEO of PNG India. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on ET Now. First to you, Mr. Dasgupta. When Minister Goyal says that there is no pressure to sign a deal, in fact, this is something that he's reiterated multiple times over and over again. In April also, he said that India will not negotiate at gunpoint. So what do you make of these statements that have been coming out and that he's been making? Does this recent statement put into question the eventuality of a deal perhaps happening over the next 24 to 48 hours, as has been suggested by sources? And of course, that's essentially what some people in the US administration are also hinting at.
I think there are two aspects to the statement. The first one is it is kind of a signal to the US that India can live even without an agreement, interim agreement, till October or beyond that also, if the terms of the agreement are not favorable to India, or there is no win-win, as the minister has said. So that is one thing. The second thing is that the signal is also to the domestic constituency that India will stand firm on its demands and on the issue of national interest. So unless its demands are met in a reasonable manner, it will not get goaded or coerced into signing any kind of an agreement. So the message is both to the US administration as well as to the domestic constituency.
Absolutely. Big messaging going out to the United States and, of course, to the constituency as well. Let me come to you, Mr. Das, on that note. When Mr. Dasgupta essentially says that India is not desperate for a deal and that it has to be a mutually beneficial deal. And sources within the Commerce Ministry have also told ET Now that there is no desperation on India's side to sign a deal. However, it would prefer that there is an interim trade deal. But if that is the case, then do you think the industry is already bracing itself to see the impact of the reciprocal tariffs, whatever it is, whether it's 26% or lesser than that, 10%, 20%? Do you think the industry is geared up to face that kind of an impact after July 9th?
Well, let me just say, first of all, yes, obviously any deal we make has to be in our national interest. But yes, what is our national interest? India has not done a very good job in terms as becoming a player in the global markets as an exporter, as a trader. And so we may be the fastest growing economy in the world today, but we have not created the jobs that come to countries when they export. And we have not created an industrial revolution so far. So what is in our national interest? We should understand that trade is good and freer trade is better. And so the protectionism has been the bane of our policies in all administrations, right, for the last 75 years. And that's why India is not where other countries, the successful, the Asian tigers, etc., look at their per capita income and look at ours. We have to, so therefore, we have to create jobs, and jobs will come, jobs will come through industrial jobs. And the best thing we can do for our farming sector today, the problem in India is not unemployment, it's underemployment. Half the people can want to leave farming to get more decent jobs. And these can come through manufacturing. It's not too late yet. And the China Plus One strategy is the right one to go. We should follow the model of Apple iPhones production. And so, therefore, I would say let's look at our policies. India's policy today should be 7 to 8% growth, whether it's defense policy, economic policy, political policy, security policy, every policy. That's what will give us, and it should be biased towards manufacturing, export of labor-intensive manufactured goods. In that sense, Trump is our best friend today because he is forcing India to bring down our tariffs and our non-tariff barriers,
Yes.
which have actually prevented us from becoming a successful country. And we cannot hope to achieve that 2047
Right.
Viksit goal unless we
Right.
take this attitude in our trade negotiations and in our strategic moving ahead. And so I think that really would be my uh, reaction to what the Commerce Minister has said. Yes, but this is our to have trade deals. We have not got a good record over the last many years of achieving trade deals,
Right.
but they are in our own favor. And we should believe, we should have the confidence. Trade
Absolutely.
competition in our market is the best school for Indian industries to grow up. You have protection when your industries are infant. That's why it's called infant industry uh, strategy, this import substitution. And so therefore, today we are still infants after 75 years, for God's sakes. No, we should have the
Right.
confidence
Right.
and
Right.
to
Right, sir.
be open.
Okay. Okay, sir, but essentially what India's stance has been that it has to be a mutually beneficial deal. It cannot just be offering benefits to the United States, essentially what they've done
Yes,
with
has to
Vietnam.
be win-win.
And of
Yeah.
course, India will look at its own interests as well, and what the industry is essentially asking for. So let me take that question across to Mr. Das Gupta. Mr. Das Gupta, Mr. Das is essentially questioning India's protectionist tendencies and protectionist policies. However, would you agree with that, given the fact that, agriculture is a very, very sensitive sector? On the other sectors, well, we are given to understand from sources that in some sectors, duties could be considerably reduced because they will benefit the Indian consumer. If the duties are less, then of course the pricing of those items is also going to be less, which in turn is going to end up benefiting the Indian consumers.
You raised several issues in your question, and I've listened very carefully to Mr. Gurcharan Dasji. I have no hesitation in saying that competition, especially in industrial products, where the subsidies are not very pronounced, they will improve productivity, competitiveness, and enable level playing field for export oriented industries to grow. But I will focus on this win-win situation. And Mr. Das also mentioned about labor-intensive industries. What are these labor-intensive industries in India that are major exporters or export earners? Textiles and clothing, leather, gems and jewelry. These are three of the most important ones on the industrial side. Now, the US, because it does not have a trade promotion authority, is unable to give us any tariff reduction as a quid pro quo for our reduction of tariffs on a host of industrial products for the US. So this agreement, even if it is signed within the next 48 or 72 hours, is going to be a kind of a one-sided affair because the US is not going to offer you anything apart from a promise to reduce its reciprocal tariffs, which is in any case against international law, against the WTO obligations of the US. So it has only said that it will reduce this 26% tariff to 10% tariff, which is again a violation of its own obligations. So what we are trying to do at the moment, very bluntly put, is to uh, ensure that we have access to the US market, even if at high tariff levels, and to gain advantage from that, if the tariff levels for the Chinese and the Vietnamese and other competitors for the products that we export are higher than us. So only in that case we will benefit. So this is the situation as it stands today. As far as agriculture is concerned, I'm not getting into
Okay,
that
and
because, as Mr.
right.
Das has also mentioned, I agree with him that unless manufacturing picks up in a very pronounced manner, the underemployment, which is chronic in Indian agriculture, in order to absorb the extra labor, we will have to provide them with a reasonable opportunity to earn a livelihood and uh, get it absorbed in the manufacturing sector, for which, of course, manufacturing has to build up
Okay,
and skilling also has to be taken
okay,
care of. So I'll stop there.
right. Right, right. Right, so a very valid point made that skilling has to be taken care of given what we are seeing is happening in case of Foxconn, and of course reportedly, China has asked at least 200-300 of these engineers from India to move out of India. They say that, of course, the contract was over, but of course the truth is something beyond that only, given the kind of geopolitical flux that we are seeing globally in terms of supply chains and of course with respect to these trade deals as well. Mr. Das, now Mr. Das Gupta is essentially hinting at the fact that India might not be leveraging its strategic importance in trade talks, and there could be something more for the United States in this mini deal instead of India getting more in this deal. What is your understanding of how the situation could perhaps be panning out as of now?
Yeah, I was talking about, I agree with a lot of concerns that Mr. Das Gupta has expressed. And, but I wasn't just limiting myself to this particular trade deal at this particular moment. I'm thinking of our
Yes, sir.
mindset in India,
Yes, sir.
that we have to go with a mindset that is a positive mindset. And what I'm suggesting is that today it is, I mean, we are a fast growing economy. We have we have done a good job in improving our infrastructure. Our port handling capacity has improved. The road mileage has doubled. We've had a digital revolution with GST. We've become one country. So we have a lot more going for us than we did in 1991. And this is now the time for us to go forward and not be concerned so much,
Okay.
and be willing to take and be willing to open our market. Partly open our market helps consumers, but it also helps producers because it creates competition in the market, and this
Right.
helps them to improve. And it's very, what I'm saying also is another factor, that when the Prime Minister of Vietnam learned that they had lost the iPhone production to India, China was the 100% producer. And the last year or two, India has become 15 to 20% of the production is now done in India. When he heard that, he took a plane
Yes.
and flew to Cupertino, California, to meet the Apple CEO. And he said, now, look, we have lost the iPhone. And we are producing all the Samsungs in the world, phones in the world. Give us the tablet. And he got the tablet. Now, should be our approach.
Okay.
States
Okay.
like Tamil Nadu understand this.
Okay.
But other states who are left behind, they need to be proactive. This is how
Yes.
China succeeded. We go to the top
Yes.
labor intensive production brands,
Absolutely.
consumer product brands in the world, Nike, etc., etc. There's so many,
Right, sir.
even in electronics, in food
Right.
processing, in all the other sectors that Mr. Das Gupta also mentioned. Go, and we got to bring
Right, sir.
them to India, and we got to show them that we can also
Right, sir.
produce, and that is really how we're going to go forward in the future.
Absolutely. And sir, India seems to be working as far as that front is concerned, a little late to the party. However, we are seeing these kind of electronics policies, state-specific electronics policies and clusters developing in states other than Tamil Nadu. You have Uttar Pradesh, then you have Assam, and of course, Andhra as well is also positioning itself. Gujarat as well, they also have a couple of those electronics projects as well. But let me come to you, Mr. Das Gupta. When we hear of sources telling us that the United States doesn't know essentially what it's looking for in the deal, I want you to focus specifically on this point. Is India then taking a leaf from China's playbook in terms of being assertive, and most importantly, can it work in India's favor, the stance that India is taking?
Well, the US is the most important market, single country market that we have. And so we can't afford, very high tariffs and to lose out to our competitors in terms of tariffs. So we would do our level best to protect our interests and to continue to export to the US. So that is one thing. The second point is that in return for preserving our low tariffs, or let's say even 10% tariffs against Vietnam's 20% and perhaps China's 55%, of which the details are extremely vague and have not been shared in the public domain. If we want to have that 10% also, what is it that we have to do in order to fend off the imposition of reciprocal tariffs of 26%? And if that means that we have to sacrifice our very vital interests at this juncture in agriculture, when our manufacturing has not really taken off, and agriculture is still the fallback option for a very vast multitude of Indian workers. In that case, I think at this juncture, to compromise on our livelihood security and food security for the sake of retaining lower tariffs than our competitors, I think that is not really going to sell. And that is where I think it is sticking. So the US also has to appreciate and be sensitive to our concerns. Just to give a figure, India has 45%, 46% people engaged only in agriculture, with another 11% or so in allied activities like dairy farming, fish farming, etc.
Yes.
And the US, in contrast, just has 2%.
Right.
And of course, the GDP contribution is about 15% for India for agriculture, and in the case of the US, it is in single digits. So the US has to be sensitive also to the underdevelopment of a certain sector in India. We may be sending spacecraft to the other side of the moon, and we may be developing a lot of technology. We may have a large number of global capability centers in India, but we also have the other India that we have to take care of and keep pulling it up. So we don't have an indefinite period of time to do that.
Absolutely.
So I agree entirely with Mr. Das. But we have to, as far as concentrating on this agreement is concerned, it is a difficult task for the Indian negotiators and the Indian government also to wriggle out of this and to, preserve our interests. And one other thing which I wanted to
that's
mention,
a delicate balance that, of course, both the... Yes, sir.
I just wanted to mention one other thing. There are about 12,000 tariff lines at the 8-digit level. And the US is not competitive in a very large number of those, globally competitive. And India has, apparently, from the reports that are emanating, India has offered zero duty access to the US to come and sell those products in India. But in return, India also wants the US to reduce its tariffs from a humongous, WTO plus 10%, plus 26%, and then perhaps a slapping of 500% tariffs because India buys things from Russia. So it can't,
Right.
trade can't flourish
Right, sir.
in this, situation of extreme uncertainty.
Absolutely. So they cannot be a gun to anybody's head with respect to, signing of these FTAs. And that's essentially what Minister Goel was also stating. And that's been India's stance. And of course, it's a delicate balance that both countries need to work to ensure that the deal is indeed mutually beneficial. One final question to you, Mr. Das, before we wrap up this discussion. We've seen the United States put pressure on countries, whether it's related to its policies on war, whether it's related to its policies on trade, and of course domestically as well on the Fed chairman, of course, and of course the opposition party as well. But now when we see the kind of pressure Donald Trump is putting on countries, and of course whether it's berating them in public or just saying that we have all access to your markets, and of course you've agreed to open up your markets, is that indicative of the fact that the United States, and most importantly Donald Trump, is buckling under the pressure of its own deadline, and perhaps they might have overplayed their hand as far as this particular policy is concerned on deals?
Well, I mean, he's always overplaying his hand, so this is nothing new. He's a bully. And I mean, and it's quite amazing, I mean, to us, because we've been critical of the weakness of our own institutions and our state capacity. But it's quite amazing how US institutions are showing a weakness. And all this, I think he's going to hurt. The bottom line is he's going to hurt the United States with all this stuff. But what I was saying at is, let's think of him actually, what we couldn't do for ourselves, he's making us thinking of doing those things. Our tariffs are out of line. We are the tariff kings of the world, which is what he called us. And that's not a compliment to India. The India of the future, which is looking at Viksit Bharat, that India has to be a factor in global trade, which we are not. And we should look at our agriculture. We are now the fourth largest exporter in the world. So we should look outwards instead of thinking of ourselves, oh, poor peasant farmers, etc. We need to make a deal with the farmers of Punjab and Haryana to get them a package, get them off this MSP on grains. They are capable of far more. So we ourselves, he's making us look at ourselves in the mirror, and that's a good thing. That's because that's where we should be going. For his own country, I'm afraid he's going to be a disaster.
Absolutely. Right, sir. Right, sir. And definitely India needs to look inwards as well. So far as some of these sectors about which it's protectionist about needs to be looked at, definitely it needs to protect its interests. But gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and perspectives on this developing story. We'll indeed have to see whether there is a deal, no deal, mini deal over the next 24 to 48 hours, and who does it ultimately end up benefiting? Will it be mutually beneficial, as of course the Indian government has been stating, or will it favor one over the other? Thanks very much once again for joining us live on this broadcast. And ladies and gentlemen, time now for us to